Hi all, just a quick update about our course. So I've had to make some changes in terms of the points allocation for assignments, and I wanted to also just check in with you about assignments. So originally we've had 10 formative assessments that were worth 3 points each, and they were tied to modules. But there were some weeks where you were doing a discussion board, but you were also doing a task related to translanguaging, or like last week's backwards planning. So I'm going to switch it so that I go back in the system and instead of 0 points, you're going to earn 3 points for some of the formative assessments. That would include the rubric for the EL research, the EL learner research brief that I shared with you, or the EL research brief. Sorry, I'm making up names here. So you had looked at a sample EL research brief last month and you scored it according to a rubric. That was worth 0 points, but I'm gonna add 3 points for that. And the reason, my rationale behind doing that is that the integrated and designated unit plan that's going to be due towards the end of this month is not something that's going to be as extensive as I originally planned. And so that's going to be only worth 15 points. So the good news is that some of the stuff you've already done, which wasn't counting for points, is now going to count for points. So we're at about 10 formative assessments that you've already done or are wrapping up. And then I wanted to let you know that to kind of go back to our course map. So the ELA ELD framework chapter presentations are wrapping up. This week is our last week with the high school chapter, chapter 7. But you'll also know that from last week when you had one of my lectures on backwards planning, that's tied to our integrated and designated ELD unit plan. So I want to describe what that's going to look like. It says that it's due November 25th according to our course map, which is what we've had on Blackboard, but I'm going to accept it all the way until the first week of December. So just wanted to let you know that that you have a few weeks to complete this task, and I'll be explaining it in just a moment. And then I wanted to remind you that the EL research brief is due on December 9th, and that you have a rubric, and I've decided to keep the rubric the same way. I looked at the ways in which you scored them, and while there was some variation according to how some of you interpreted the rubric, most of you were pretty consistent. And with that sample EL research brief that I provided, most of you took off a point for something related to APA, and then some of you were related to the content or the literature review, and I'll pull that up so that you can see. But that EL research brief is still due December 9th. If for some reason you need an extension, I will work with you on an individual basis. But the rubric that's been on Blackboard in our rubric section is the same one that you'll be using. It is tied to the topic that you chose towards the beginning of the semester, but remember I told you in our individual meetings that you did not have to you don't have to keep that topic. So some of you have reached out to change your topics, and we've had some Zoom meetings or some face-to-face meetings, but you'll receive a link with this video to additional Zoom meeting opportunities. So if anyone this week wants to check in with me and have a 15-minute conversation via Zoom, I'm also available in person for those of you that are local. We can set up a time, but to talk anything out, just know that I'm here to support you with that. I've also have an additional resource that I want to share with you for the EL research brief that I'm going to upload to Blackboard. But that is something that can be found. Let me pull it up here so you can see the website. The San Diego County Office of Education has these. Oh, that's not it. Let's see. Has these. Here it is. It's so weird. It's not showing you what I can see. Let me try this again. Okay, there we go. They have these research briefs called Focus on English Learners, and they're great examples to also think about what these research briefs could look like. So you still follow the rubric for the course, but you can look at these to get some ideas on how you would write it up. And I think just to clarify something related to the literature review. So for your literature review that you would be writing, for example, for your MA project, or for a pilot study, or just a simple literature review, is going to look different than a type of literature review for this research brief, because you're demonstrating that you've read on this topic, that you're writing about, but you're not writing an extensive literature review. Because remember, this is only 1,000 to 2,000 words. So that's roughly, 2 to 4 pages single spaced. So it's not very lengthy. And it's really just you showing that you've thought about this topic, that educational stakeholders, parents, policymakers, educators, that one of these groups or more needs to be educated on this topic, right? Or is something that they should know about. So if you look at these example focus on English learner briefs, you'll see that this one is about, I'm trying to think of which one I pulled up. This one's about building on English learner strengths and needs. Additional ones include, for example, trying to remember which one this was. Oh, using the EL learner roadmap. There's another one that's focused on writing, so the writing genre, how to teach genre writing as a process for English learners, right? So just wanted you to know that these are there and that they're helpful to be inspired by in terms of how you're writing your research brief. And if you have any particular questions, that's what those Zoom meetings are for, so that I can support you. I also wanted to, let's see, what else can I pull up? Just remind you that this is what that rubric is. Remember that you are now getting points for submitting that. Before it was worth 0 points, but I wanted just to kind of calibrate to see if you were able to make meaning from this rubric. And the only thing that I'd like to mention is that I did write the word "and" that I'm highlighting. That's the only addition that I added, just to be really clear that in terms of the organization of the paper, it should include all of those elements. The other thing I wanted to mention is that if for some reason you're thinking bigger, or you're thinking that perhaps your research brief can turn into something that's very meaningful for your particular context, and that this rubric constrains what you're able to do, then just let me know, and we can rework and redesign this rubric together. Because for me, of course, the rigor needs to be there. I'm expecting that you're doing this work and connecting to what you know about EL issues, but I also want it to be practical, and I want it to be something that you're more likely to share with others. So reach out to me if that's something that we need to have a conversation about. Let's see. I want to remind you that the citations that you're using, that you're including for your APA, your list of references, that they are peer-reviewed sources. So there has to be at least 7. And remember, when you're looking for journal articles that are peer-reviewed, there's a way when you're in the system through San Diego State's library to check a box that shows that they are only peer-reviewed, the ones that you're reading. That doesn't mean that you can't include other sources that are not peer-reviewed. You can include other sources if it's quality and you think that it helps move your brief forward, but you have to have at least 7 that are peer-reviewed. And sometimes that's called refereed. One way you can also find out, like let's say you were doing a Google Scholar search and you found an article that you think could work, but you're not sure if it's peer-reviewed, then just go to the journal article, the journal itself, the website, and in the About section, it should say if it's refereed or peer-reviewed. So that should be able to help you if you're unsure. And then lastly, I just want to tell you a little bit about the unit plan and how that's going to be a little less extensive, but it's still worth 15 points, and how this document here that's on Blackboard will support you so you know what to do. So for this assignment, the goal is for you in a collaborative team with someone who works or has experience or interest in a similar grade level to you, that you've decided to plan a unit of study. And that unit of study would have a particular theme based on the topic, like a unifying topic that you choose. based on standards though, right? So this is something that over the next few weeks you'll be getting more support, but this week you're going to have a little bit of support with the idea of how to write enduring understandings and essential questions. And it's tied to the lecture that I did that you were working on this current week. You still have a couple of days to submit your notes from that on Blackboard. But it's all tied to standards, to state standards. And so you're thinking of integrating science and English language arts and ELD, or social studies, etc., right? So you could do something that incorporates more than just English language arts and ELD with an additional content area. It could be two. So really it's what makes the most sense for the real classroom. You're expected to design an assessment and include a rubric. And then really the core of this assignment is really you integrating what you've been learning about ELA and ELD from the framework chapters we've read, and also looking at the ELD standards to think about what strategies for integrated and designated ELD you could use. And I want you to be mindful that in your unit, you would be describing what those strategies could be, with giving a nod or an explanation of how it might look different in an integrated versus a designated part of the day. So this unit plan is not going to include lesson plans. And so you're really just in your collaborative team deciding how you would have the skeleton for a unit plan that you could then, if you were to take it to the next step, you could then write individual lessons. And you were using this just as a template. You'll see that there are points associated with each of the sections. So reach out if you have any questions or if I can clarify, but really the idea is, how do you in a professional learning community decide how to write a skeleton unit plan using what we know about backwards planning, and then using what you're going to be exposed to in the next couple of weeks around assessment and instructional strategies around ELD. And that's aligned with what was written in our course map. So just wanted to update you with that. And I wanted to extend an invitation for you to use our discussion board section on Blackboard to start a conversation to see who might want to be in your group. So at a minimum, you need to have 3 people working in your professional learning community, but you could have up to 5. So 3 to 5 people in a team. So for example, I know that we have someone who works at the preschool level. So you might write a post on our discussion board where on Blackboard it says, unit planning groups. You can write a post and say, I'm interested in writing a unit that's in TK or K. Or someone might say, I'm interested in writing a unit that's at the high school level. So I just wanted you to know that discussion board tool is there for you to try to figure out your groups. But once you know who is in your group, please send me an email and let me know so I can document that. And I want to make sure that everybody's on a team this week. And then I also wanted just to let you know that even if you are in a team that isn't necessarily planning for your particular grade level, that's okay, because it is our job as educators, and for us that are in the DLE department that are getting a master's in DLE, that the idea is that you are learning about language development and instructional implications for that across the K-12 trajectory. And the reason is that if you're a high school teacher, for example, you need to know what kinds of experiences students are getting before they get to you so that you can build from them. If you are a preschool or an early, primary grade teacher, the idea that you need to know what's happening at the high school level is important, because this is what you are preparing children or supporting teachers, depending on your role, for folks that are, or for educating students so that they will be successful in secondary education, and really for post-secondary ed as well. And I know some of you are in post-secondary ed. So to have the knowledge of even the pre-K-12 system is really important. So it's all connected and it's all important. But my hope is that you are able to find a group that's related to your particular context, so that if you are in high school, that you're planning a high school unit. So if for some reason that doesn't happen and you're having a hard time finding a team, let me know, and I might be able to make an exception so that you can plan a unit that's applicable to your context. But like I said, reach out to me, and thanks to those of you that have been in touch with any questions that have arisen or that have needed additional support or clarity on my behalf. But know that I'm always around, so send me messages and just via Remind or email, and just know that I'm here to support you. Okay, have a great week. Talk soon.